This is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm your host, Mark Gunn. The views expressed on this program are those of the host and guests and not necessarily reflective of anyone or any entity associated with this broadcast. The Gunshots Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. This episode, we're going to be taking a look at the black athlete and mental health. Well, as you know, Simone Biles has removed herself from the Olympic Games, citing mental health issues. But she's not the first athlete to do that. As a matter of fact, not more than a month ago, tennis superstar Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open. She incurred a $15,000 fine, and she also cited mental health issues. Here's how that went down.
Assertive on the court.
That is crushing.
And off. When Naomi Osaka made it clear she wasn't in the mental headspace to do press at the French Open, it hit her with a fine. $15,000 and threatened to slap her down with sanctions. Today, tennis's number 2 packed up her racket from one of the sport's most prestigious events. Writing on Twitter, "The truth is, I have had long bouts of depression since the U.S. Open in 2018, and I have had a really hard time coping with that," adding she will take some time away from the court. One of its biggest draws now gone. What could the Open say but this?
We wish her the best and the quickest possible recovery.
A warmer reaction from Osaka's idol, Serena Williams.
I feel for Naomi. I feel like I wish I could give her a hug because I know what it's like.
No word on whether the organization will reconsider its fine, but this sports psychology consultant says she did the right thing.
We should be applauding Naomi and seeing what we can do to support her. I hope that this starts to change the language and change people's minds.
It's not the first time Osaka refused to play. In August, she walked away from a match, so the spotlight remained on Jacob Blake, shot and paralyzed by Wisconsin police, tweeting at the time, "Before I am an athlete, I am a black woman." Osaka has also proven her heart is bigger than her ego, famously sharing the glory of a win by celebrating the 15-year-old phenom she beat.
I think, Coco, you're amazing.
Really nice.
Osaka has beaten legends like Serena Williams. Perhaps the Grand Slam's attitude toward the mental health of its players will be next.
As in the case of Simone Biles, she has been through a hell of a lot. Not only is the pressure to compete and be the best is something that she's always dealt with, but she's also a survivor of sexual abuse by her own team doctors. That's a whole story in and of itself. So the fact that she withdrew from the games caused a whole lot of people to be upset, as if she was competing for them. Some of the remarks that you hear on social media was, well, she shouldn't let America down, or that's a spot that should have gone to another athlete, or she's a quitter, when nothing could be further from the truth. Self-awareness is a very big part of being a pro athlete, and she kind of knew something was wrong when she was competing the other day. Olympic gold medalist Lori Hernandez explains.
Yeah, so from what it looks like, Simone is supposed to do an Amanar, which is a Yurchenko 2.5. So from when her hands leave the table and when she lands, she does a 2.5 twist. She does a 1.5. So basically, A, that's crazy. B, we're watching it slowed down now. The reason why I know that she did a 1.5, I know for those watching, you may not understand what that looks like. You may say, like, it looks like she did a 2.5. This is a 1.5. We can tell that she gets lost in the air. She is twisting here. So right now she does a half.
Okay.
She's going. She finishes. This is the full, right? Full. And she opens up. And you see her head looking to the right. She's twisting to the right. It looked like she wanted to keep twisting, but had opened up and gotten lost in the air. The fact that she landed while getting lost in the air is incredible, first of all.
Right.
Second of all, this is not something that we've seen from her. It could be something that's happening during practice.
Shortly after withdrawing, Simone had a press conference with the rest of her team and explained her actions this way.
No injury, thankfully, and that's why I took a step back because I didn't want to do something silly out there and get injured. So I thought it was best if these girls took over and did the rest of the job, which they absolutely did. They're Olympic silver medalists now, and they should be really proud of themselves for how well they did last minute having to go in. And it's been really stressful, this Olympic Games. I think just as a whole, not having an audience, there are a lot of different variables going into it. It's been a long week. It's been a long Olympic process. It's been a long year. So just a lot of different variables, and I think we're just a little bit too stressed out, but we should be out here having fun, and sometimes that's not the case. I just felt like it would be a little bit better to take a back seat, work on my mindfulness, and I knew that the girls would do an absolutely great job, and I didn't want to risk the team a medal for kind of my screw-ups because they've worked way too hard for that. So I just decided that those girls need to go in and do the rest of the competition. Yeah, I say put mental health first, because if you don't, then you're not going to enjoy your sport and you're not going to succeed as much as you want to. So it's okay sometimes to even sit out the big competitions to focus on yourself, because it shows how strong of a competitor and person that you really are, rather than just battle through it.
While the future is uncertain as to whether or not Simone will be competing in the games at some point, there are experts that are weighing in on what may be going on with her. Dr. David Colarossi explains.
What an absolute nightmare. I feel so bad for her. She pulls out of the team finals after a bad vault, has to walk off the floor with the physician. I don't know why it was a physician, why there was no psychologist there. It's insane to me they don't have a psychologist on hand. This woman has been talking about confidence and anxiety for weeks now. They don't have a psychologist available. Anyway, they pull her off. She goes to the back. She goes, I need to pull out of the competition. Then she comes out in a coach's role, and the team gets a silver medal. And now we all sort of wait to see, is she going to be able to compete? I think it starts on Thursday for the individual competition. It's what a blow. So apparently they're going to get her a psychologist, a sports psychologist, between now and Thursday. So I wanted to talk about what I think is happening with Simone, and likely what the intervention will be from a psychologist. So what happened to her? I think it was a full-on panic attack. I can't imagine any other reason why she would have underperformed the way that she did, and then also pulled herself out of the entire competition. If you don't have exposure to panic attacks, let me just sort of describe a little bit of what that's like. Anxiety sucks because it's so cyclical. First, you experience the anxiety, you experience the symptoms, maybe an elevated heart rate, and then your brain goes, uh-oh, you're too nervous. You're getting nervous. And then what happens then is your body responds by ramping up. The heart rate skyrockets. You start sweating. And then your brain goes, oh crap, it's happening. You're having panic. You're not going to be able to perform. And then all of a sudden, physiologically, you start sweating. The heart rate's out of control. Now the blood pressure, you can't think clearly, right? It's this cyclical process and you just can't get out of it. I think that happened to her on that vault, and she goes, I got to pull out. So if I am the sports psychologist working with her, what I'm going to try and do is sort of in tiers. The first thing I'm going to try and do is help her regulate her emotion in the moment. I don't know what medications are allowed, but I imagine they're doing something, whether it's beta blockers or full-on benzos, something to calm her down so that she can think more logically about what's happening to her. They're going to use relaxation techniques, mindfulness, positive self-talk, those kind of tactical tools just to get her to regulate her emotions. I'm sure they already did some of that for her to come back out and coach and then be able to speak at the press conference. The next thing that they're going to do, I believe, is cognitive restructuring. Simone had you can describe this if you think about this is the pinnacle of her career, and then something mental, psychological derailed her. She is going to be, there's trauma around being undermined and derailed like that. The psychologist will have to work with her to help her think differently about what happened. Instead of saying, I was out of control or I lost control, I've disappointed everybody, the country is mad at me, I'm a failure, she has to change her thinking to be, I've demonstrated the power of mental health, I showed maturity as a gymnast, I made the right decision, now I'm the underdog, I still have a lot of opportunity, right? They have to change the way she's thinking about what happened to her and her legacy. Like, did this destroy who Simone Biles is? Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it gave her the opportunity to show how powerful she is. And finally, the sports psychologist will help her think towards the future and gain a sense of control. In order to perform at the level of these elite athletes, you have to be in the precise right mental place. That means the appropriate level of confidence, the appropriate level of anxiety, the appropriate level of motivation and drive. To get there, she has to use techniques, visualization, self-talk again, mindfulness again, coaching from a psychologist to get her sort of zoned in on exactly where she needs to be from a psychological standpoint. And the key here is she has to feel like she has the ability to control that. And I'll tell you this, if I were the psychologist, I would be pushing the underdog narrative. Instead of walking into these final events thinking the world is on my shoulders, I'm the best gymnast, I have to perform or I'm letting down the United States, I think she needs to think, I'm an underdog, they don't believe in me, they don't think I can do it, and let me prove them wrong. I think Simone has made a career off of proving people wrong. So I don't know what will happen. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on Simone.
No matter what the outcome, no matter what Simone Biles is going through, or any pro athlete for that matter, bottom line is your mental health is the most important thing. Without it, you're unable to compete. And for those naysayers that make the remarks that you make on social media, unless you've competed at that level, unless you've gone through the things that Simone Biles has gone through, or any other pro athlete, your opinion doesn't mean a hell of a lot. There are a lot of folks that are supporting her on social media as well, and professional athletes that are showing all kinds of support. So Simone needs to take all the time that she has to get herself right, so that she won't be a detriment to herself or to her teammates. She is doing what is responsible, especially in a team sport. So we're pulling for you. And if you or anybody else is dealing with any sort of mental issue, take advantage of the resources that are out there. There is help. And this is becoming a bigger issue, especially for Black Americans. So Simone, our best to you. Here's hoping that you get better soon. Coming up, we're going to take another look at mental health trauma, except this happened at the United States Capitol on January 6th, right after this.
This is Mark on Media.
Hit it!
One of the biggest accomplishments we've had over the past year is the continued growth of our podcast, Gunshots Straight from the Hip. If you haven't heard it, you can check it out now on our website at markgunmedia.com or on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the TuneIn Radio app. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Past episodes are available for download right now. Each episode is written and produced from a perspective not heard enough in this medium, the Black perspective. However, Gunshots Straight from the Hip is not limited to a Black audience. Anyone can get something out of it. We tackle social and political issues, sometimes some slice of life stuff, in a way that's very compelling and unlike any other podcast on the market right now. With my experience as an award-winning audio producer and a reputation for being rather outspoken, Gunshots Straight from the Hip is something you won't want to miss. Over the next year, we want to add more subscribers with a goal of 1,000 new subscribers every month. If you haven't joined us yet, go to our website at markgunmedia.com and hit the podcast link. You could also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're already with us, thank you. We just ask that you turn your friends and family on to us. Remember, we have a goal of 1,000 new subscribers every month, and we can't do it without your support. That's Gunshots Straight from the Hip, available right now at markgunmedia.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the TuneIn Radio app. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Mark on Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work. This is Mark on Media.
Hit it!
Hey, what's up? This is Mark Gunn. I have an audiobook that I collaborated on with author Steve Dust Circle. It's called Before Your First Gig. It's written specifically for the new band or artist just getting started. In about 15 minutes, we will give you the blueprint for setting up to give live performances, marketing your band, and making your music presentable to the masses and the audience that you're going after. Thousands of dollars in sound advice for, get this, $3.99. That's right, $3.99. To download your copy, simply go to my website, markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com, and the link is on the homepage. It's available from Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Just click the link that you prefer. As an added bonus, with the proof of purchase, I'll send you the Mark Gunn Media Artist Starter Kit at no additional cost. In it, you'll find all the resources you need to learn about music licensing and publishing, how to register your music with BDS and SoundScan in order to get radio airplay. There's also information about how to become a member of ASCAP and BMI. All the forms you need are included. And finally, the relationship between music and money, how you can cash in. Once you've downloaded your copy of Before Your First Gig, send me an email confirmation by going once again to the website, markgunmedia.com, and hit the Contact Us link. Just give me the name of one of the chapters you heard and any feedback about the book that you may have, and I will send you that Artist Starter Kit. Thousands of dollars worth of information for just under $4. You won't find this anywhere else. Remember, go to markgunmedia.com and download Before Your First Gig from the link on the homepage. Reach out with your proof of purchase by giving me the name of one of the chapters you heard, and the Mark Gunn Media Artist Starter Kit is yours at no additional cost.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. This episode, we're taking a look at mental health and the black athlete. We told you about the ongoing saga with Simone Biles, who has removed herself from the Olympics, citing mental health issues. Given everything that she's gone through, sexual abuse, pressure to compete in the whole 9 yards, she's totally entitled to take the time she needs to get better. But now I want to take a look at another mental health issue. This time it's for Capitol Police officers that survived the domestic terror attack of January 6th in Washington, D.C. This week, a select subcommittee investigating the insurrection held its first testimony. 4 Capitol Police officers testified. Here's how some of that went.
I reported for duty at the Capitol as usual early on the morning of January 6th. We understood that the vote to certify President Biden's election would be taking place that day, and protests might occur outside the Capitol. But we expected any demonstrations to be peaceful expressions of First Amendment freedoms, just like the scores of demonstrations we had observed for many years. After roll call, I took my overwatch post on the east front of the Capitol, standing on the steps that led up to the Senate chamber. As the morning progressed, I did not see or hear anything that gave me cause for alarm. But around 10:56 a.m., I received a text message from a friend forwarding a screenshot of what appeared to be the potential plan of action, very different from a peaceful demonstration. The screenshot bore the caption, January 6th, Rally Point, Lincoln Park, and said the objective was the Capitol. It said, amongst other things, that Trump has given us marching orders and to keep your guns hidden. It urged people to bring your trauma kits and gas mask, to link up early in the day in 6 to 12-man teams. It indicated there would be time to arm up. Seeing that message caused me concern. To be sure, looking back now, it seemed to foreshadow what happened later. At the time, though, we had not received any threat warnings from our chain of command. I had no independent reason to believe that violence was headed our way. As the morning progressed and the crowd of protesters began to swell on the east side of the Capitol, many displaying Trump flags, the crowd was chanting slogans like, "Stop the steal," and "We want Trump." But demonstration was still being conducted in a peaceful manner. Early that afternoon, Capitol Police Dispatch advised all units over the radio that we had an active 10100 at the Republican National Committee nearby. 10100 is police code for a suspicious package, such as a potential bomb. That radio dispatch got my attention, and I started to get more nervous and worried, especially because the crowds on the east front of the Capitol were continuing to grow. Around the same time, I started receiving reports on the radio about large crowd movements around the Capitol, coming from the direction of the ellipse to both the west and east fronts of the Capitol. Then I heard urgent radio calls for additional officers to respond to the west side, and an exclamation, a desperate voice, that demonstrators on the west side had breached the fence. Now it was obvious that there was a direct threat to the Capitol. I quickly put on a steel chest plate, which weighs approximately 20 pounds, and carrying my M4 rifle, sprinted around the north side of the Capitol to the West Terrace and the railing of the inaugural stage, where I had a broad view of what was going on. I was stunned by what I saw. In what seemed like a sea of people, Capitol police officers and Metropolitan police officers, MPD, were engaged in desperate hand-to-hand fighting with rioters across the West Lawn. Until then, I had never seen anyone physically assault Capitol Police or MPD, let alone witness mass assaults being perpetrated on law enforcement officers. I witnessed the rioters using all kinds of weapons against officers, including flagpoles, metal bike racks that they had torn apart, and various kinds of projectiles. Officers were being bloodied in the fighting. Many were screaming, and many were blinded and coughing from chemical irritants being sprayed in their faces. I gave decontamination aid to as many officers as I could, flushing their eyes with water to dilute the chemical irritants. Soon thereafter, I heard, "Attention all units, the Capitol has been breached," and that rioters were in various places inside the building. At that point, I rushed into the Capitol with another officer, going first to the basement on the Senate side, where I'd heard an MPD officer needed a defibrillator. After returning outside to the West Terrace to assist officers, I went back into the Capitol and up the stairs towards the crypt. There I saw rioters who had invaded the Capitol carrying a Confederate flag, a red MAGA flag, and a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. I decided to stand my ground there to prevent any rioters from heading down the stairs to the Lower West Terrace entrance, because that's where officers were getting decontamination aid and were particularly vulnerable. At the top of the stairs, I confronted a group of insurrectionists, warning them do not go down those steps. One of them shouted, "Keep moving, patriots." Another displayed what looked like a law enforcement badge and told me, "We're doing this for you." One of the invaders approached me like he was going to try to get past me and head down the stairs. I hit him, knocking him down. After getting relieved by other officers in the crypt, I took off running upstairs towards the speaker's lobby and helped a plainclothes officer who was getting hassled by insurrectionists. Some of them were dressed like members of a militia group, wearing tactical vests, cargo pants, and body armor. I was physically exhausted, and it was hard to breathe and to see because of all the chemical spray in the air. More and more insurrectionists were pouring into the area by the speaker's lobby near the rotunda, and some wearing MAGA hats and shirts that said Trump 2020. I told them to just leave the Capitol, and in response they yelled, "No, man, this is our house. President Trump invited us here. We're here to stop the steal. Joe Biden is not the president. Nobody voted for Joe Biden." I'm a law enforcement officer, and I do my best to keep politics out of my job. But in this circumstance, I responded, "Well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count?" Am I nobody? That prompted a torrent of racial epithets. One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This voted for Joe Biden." No one had ever called me a while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer. In the days following the attempted insurrection, other Black officers shared with me their own stories of racial abuse on January 6th. One officer told me he had never, and in his entire 40 years of life, been called a to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th.
So you've seen the testimony, you've heard the testimony, and as it continues, hopefully we'll get more answers about what happened on January 6th, and we can take steps to make sure that it never happens again. Meanwhile, you still have to be concerned for the mental health of those officers that survived that day. You heard how serious it was. And especially for officers of color, there's an added dimension of racism that was on clear display. I don't care who you are. When you're called nigger, it hits you totally different. And that's a psychic trauma that's well over 400 years in the making. So while the investigation continues, we want to get more answers, and we want to hold everybody that was involved accountable. Everybody from the lowest knucklehead off the street to the highest elected official. Doesn't matter who they are. While I'm not the most patriotic guy on the planet, I do understand that democracy is the way that this government is supposed to work. But when you storm the Capitol, when you commit an act of domestic terrorism, you need to be treated like the terrorist that you are. So hopefully there are going to be lengthy prison sentences for a lot of folks coming down the pike. And we also hope that those officers and anybody else that was traumatized by that event will heal. And they will in time. Coming up next week, who knows? Everything is jumping off at such a rapid pace. COVID-19 starting to make more headlines. We could be going back to wearing masks if you're not careful. So we may be talking about that next week. However, if you want to leave your feedback about this episode or any other, you're more than welcome to do that. Get a hold of us at mark@markgunmedia.com. And you can check out past episodes of this podcast anywhere that you get your podcast. You can also check out my website, markgunmedia.com, for more information. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
This is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
This is Mark Gunn, and for more information about the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
You've been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and not reflective of any business entity or anyone associated with this broadcast. If you have any comments or want more information on how to be a sponsor, log on to our website at markgunmedia.com or call us at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.